Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and before we dive into this breaking and politically charged development, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this video so we keep exposing the stories shaking Zimbabwe to its core. Today, we are unpacking an explosive situation that could change the power dynamics in Harare. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has reportedly moved to tighten his grip on the Zimbabwean military after pledging to increase their pay. On the surface, this might look like a simple act of generosity or reform, but behind the scenes, analysts say this could be one of the most strategic, high-stakes political moves of his entire presidency. For years, Zimbabwe's military has been the invisible but undeniable force behind political transitions in the country. From the 2017 coup that ousted Robert Mugabe to the more subtle internal maneuvers since, the army has played a decisive role in who holds power. Mnangagwa, a man who himself rose to the presidency on the back of military support, knows that the loyalty of the armed forces is not just important, it's existential. Without them, his political empire could crumble overnight. And now, amid growing speculation about divisions within ZANU-PF, whispers of succession battles, and rising discontent in the ranks, Mnangagwa is making sure the soldiers know exactly where their bread is buttered. The promise to raise military salaries comes at a time when inflation is still biting hard, the Zimbabwean dollar remains unstable, and public sector workers across the country are struggling to make ends meet. For months, teachers, nurses, and other civil servants have been demanding better pay, but the government's response has been slow and cautious. So why is the military getting special attention? Insiders suggest it's not just about improving livelihoods, it's about buying loyalty and making sure the army's allegiance stays firmly with the president, especially as whispers grow that some elements within the armed forces have been warming to Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, himself a former military chief and a man still deeply respected in the barracks. This pay rise pledge, according to sources, is not just a blanket promise. Mnangagwa has reportedly ordered a full restructuring of the military command's benefits, perks, and allowances, from improved housing schemes for senior officers to increased operational budgets. It's a well-timed move, happening just as the political temperature is rising in Zimbabwe. With the ruling party's factions at each other's throats, and speculation mounting over who will succeed Mnangagwa when his term ends, securing the loyalty of the army could be the difference between a smooth continuation of his rule or a sudden, Mugabe-style exit. Some political analysts are blunt about it. They say this is a textbook case of militarizing politics to protect personal power. Others argue it's simply the reality of Zimbabwean politics. Whoever controls the army controls the state. Either way, the message from the president to the soldiers is loud and clear: I am your paymaster, and I will take care of you, as long as you take care of me. But the move is not without risks. Ordinary Zimbabweans are already asking why the military is being prioritized over teachers, doctors, and other essential workers. Social media is buzzing with criticism, with some accusing the government of using national resources to fund a private security shield for Mnangagwa rather than addressing the broader economic crisis. There's also the question of sustainability. Can Zimbabwe's already strained treasury afford these pay hikes without triggering more inflation or deepening the country's debt crisis? Inside ZANU-PF, the move is being watched with keen interest, and perhaps a bit of nervousness. If Mnangagwa succeeds in locking down military loyalty, it will significantly weaken any internal challenge to his leadership. But if the pay rise fails to satisfy the rank and file, or if it creates resentment among other public sector groups, it could backfire spectacularly. Some in the ruling elite are also worried that this kind of military appeasement gives the armed forces even more power over the political process, potentially making them kingmakers in every leadership transition going forward. What's especially interesting is the timing. This pledge to raise military pay comes just weeks after reports emerged of closed-door meetings between Chiwenga loyalists and certain army commanders. Whether those meetings were innocent or politically loaded is anyone's guess, but for Mnangagwa, the optics alone were enough to justify shoring up his support. By improving conditions for the military now, he sends a subtle but unmistakable signal to any would-be challengers: the barracks are with me. There's also a historical layer here. Under Mugabe, the military was both feared and rewarded, often receiving privileges that other sectors could only dream of. Mnangagwa, having been Mugabe's enforcer for decades, knows this playbook well. He is simply updating it for the 2020s, in a country where the army is not just a security institution but a central player in politics and business. Behind closed doors, some say the president's team is already working on additional perks to sweeten the deal, including land allocations, access to lucrative state contracts, and priority in foreign exchange allocations. This is not just a pay rise, it's a full loyalty package. And while it may be politically effective in the short term, it also raises uncomfortable questions about governance and accountability in a democracy where the military's role is supposed to be apolitical. For ordinary Zimbabweans, the story is bittersweet. On one hand, no one can deny that soldiers, like any workers, deserve fair pay, especially given the sacrifices they make. On the other hand, the perception that the military is being used as a political insurance policy rather than as a professional national institution could deepen public mistrust of the government. And with elections, succession debates, and economic challenges all converging in the near future, that mistrust could quickly turn into unrest. The big question now is whether this move will solidify Mnangagwa's control or merely expose the depth of Zimbabwe's political fragility. If the military feels truly valued and invested in keeping him in power, he may have just secured himself a shield against any political storms ahead. But if this is seen as an empty promise, or if the benefits fail to reach the ordinary soldier on the ground, it could embolden those quietly plotting for a change at the top. One thing is certain: the battle for Zimbabwe's future is no longer just about elections, policies, or party politics. It's about who holds the loyalty of the men and women in uniform. And right now, Mnangagwa is making sure that answer is him, and him alone. Whether that secures his legacy or speeds up his downfall, only time will tell, but the stakes have never been higher.